So we're going to start with Paul Flynn's editorial today, which is carried in the Irish Times, which is about the GPA, basically, because he's the new chief executive of the GPA. We wish him all the best with that. One thing that was kind of a little bit buried in the piece.
Yeah, well, it is in the headline, to be fair. It's kind of a couple of pages deep into the sports section in the Irish Times. So basically 60% of footballers would like to see a change to a tiered championship, which is a stark enough statistic. Basically, I would say that the idea for this came from the ASRI report to go and survey all their players in terms of player welfare, in terms of injuries, in terms of their satisfaction with the current setup in championship structures and things like that. So before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it, just to kind of let you know what the big findings are from the GPA surveying of their members. They said that the broad consensus is that more games in the summer is a good thing and that they want more. That's pretty much self-evident. I think we all kind of knew that. But they want to say that 3/4 of players are satisfied that new competition structures allow for sufficient games against equal standard teams. But when you get into that 3/4 statistic, the difference between hurling and football, as you might expect, is stark. 90% of hurlers are satisfied with the way the new championship structures have changed things. 53% of footballers are satisfied with how the new competition structures have allowed for sufficient games against similar standard teams. Now, almost 3/4 of players are not satisfied with the length of their off-season. This is a big concern voiced by Paul Flynn in the column. 40% of players saying they got no time off at all ahead of the 2018 season. And GPA research, which has been carried out recently, Flynn says, shows a significant growth of hip and groin injuries among county players, which is a pretty big concern. The overwhelming view basically here is that April has not worked. According to GPA members, it's been a bit of a failure. Over 50 squads said that they were expected to train or play with both their club and their county teams in April. And also another point, which hasn't really been spoken about too much when it comes to the April month, is that third level students that are surveyed feel that the academic stress is most acute in the month of April. So you've got your club commitments, you've got your county commitments, and then you've got your assignments and preparations for exams as well. So it's kind of a triple whammy, so to speak, in April. What they're asking for is 3 steps. First of all, a task force with representatives of all relevant fixture planning bodies, which we've been calling for quite some time here. That needs to be set up with an urgent mandate to deliver change quickly, Flynn says. Consultation with the GPA he wants before any further changes are made to the football championship, and an urgent review of closed season policies. Something, pretty much everything in there I personally agree with, that there's a lot of sense spoken in there. The statistics aren't overly surprising. It's just the kind of strength of the statistics, particularly the 60% in favour of a tiered championship.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the tiered championship. If you sell it as a B championship, it's dead immediately. It's stillborn. It has to be. What we're doing is we're categorising teams according to their ability, and you will get promoted or relegated if you have a good season or a bad season. You can get all the way up to the top, and you can win this thing in a couple of years if you've got a really good squad. So we're not punishing you if a very talented bunch of under-21s come along at the same time and make your senior team. That first year where you flower out, you'll get promotion. And if you're really good and you keep everybody together, and over the summer you're going to have much more chance keeping them together because there's meaningful games for them, then they'll play deep into the year. And we will massively promote this, and we won't sell TV rights to anybody who won't show Division 3 and Division 2 games.
Yeah, that's a good shout, the TV rights thing there, because that's the key component of the coverage of whatever the tier 2, tier 3 championship is. Because like we've had a sticking point as well with that Wicklow proposal that was proposed last year, or last week I should say, that was carried in the Irish Independent, which I was personally in favour of.
Which? The
Wicklow proposal that creates a tier 2 championship, which would allow everybody to take part in their provincial championships. He's given the shifty eyes. You're completely.
I'm rolling my eyes. This is nonsensical.
Basically, for anybody who missed that, the idea was that everybody would enter their provincial championships. If you don't make your provincial final and you're in Division 3 or 4, you get relegated to Division, or do you take part then in Tier 2
the B
for the rest of the summer?
It is exactly the definition of a B championship. It's pointless. You don't get promoted. There's no point in winning it. You win at the end of the year. All you get is like, oh, we got a holiday and a big game in Croke Park as a curtain raiser to another match, which meant that the stadium was completely empty and people were leaving their seats and going around the place. Whereas this proper B championship means that you can have an All-Ireland final somewhere, which is like the Gaelic grounds, and they fill it, or you can have, because promotion will mean something. Next year you will have a chance of winning the All-Ireland because you're good enough. Or like,
so only one person gets promoted after they've won that, or is promotion sealed off
maybe
for
both
the
teams.
finalists?
I don't know. Maybe it's hard to have a final when both teams are already through. What's the point of that?
Well, that's the thing.
Maybe that's just run off as a league, and it's like the top 2 teams from this league go through.
Yeah. like, I don't know how you fix that issue of coverage for a B championship. Like, whatever label you put on it, that's what it's going to be.
You insist that, and you can insist as a rights holder that you will give a half-hour pre-match show, a full half-hour post-match as part of the coverage. Like, people are wondering why you're seeing so many games in so many sports being broadcast by the TV companies at the moment, because the rights holders are insisting you must show every game. You have the technology capability to show every game, Yeah. And so if I'm the GAA, I'm saying, okay, if we have a Division 2 and a Division 3, then you must show the same number of Division 3 matches and the same number of Division 2 matches as Division 1 matches, and you can have the rights for the Division 1 matches for loads of money. And now we actually have like multiple broadcasters who can, you can have the Friday night or the Saturday afternoon, the Saturday evening, the Sunday. You've got like 3 broadcasters showing games and showing 2 matches as double headers. It's like all of a sudden there are loads of games for people, meaningful matches at the smaller county grounds around the country, week in, week out. So suddenly Leitrim have the chance of getting promoted. And if 3 weeks in they've lost their first 3 games, there's still 3 games to go, well, that's an opportunity for them to blood new talent for the next year. And sure, their best players are going to head off to America the way they do already. So no system is perfect, but at least we could trend towards a system where everybody's getting 5 or 6 games in the summer and away you go.
Fair enough, good idea. But I say, what's the difference between showing Tier 2 championship games on television and, say, showing League of Ireland games on television? Just because the games are on television and just because they've got preview and analysis doesn't mean that the public are going to care.
It doesn't. But when the game is good because the 2 teams are of equal standard, like...
Definitely.
No.
It's like as I say, I agree. It's a good idea. Like but I just don't see how that differs too much from the Wicklow proposal, which is a second-tier championship where you've got teams of equal standing playing to win in All Ireland, which will take place on All Ireland final day. Like, the people will still be milling around no matter what this tier, just because it's in the Gaelic grounds and people aren't milling around. Like, doesn't necessarily give it a rubber stamp of approval that this is suddenly a more...
So maybe there's only one team promoted and that final is a playoff for that one team. Like,
but that would certainly add more weight to it.
So,
but then there's a lack of fluidity between divisions.
Yeah, ideally it's 2, right? And there's some way of incentivising the winners get a trip to Thailand for everybody involved.
Not a bad idea.
Including backroom team.